Susan Wagner, Special Projects Director for Country Sampler, and welcome to this week's episode of Creative Living. You know, nowadays, the big thing is to be repurposing or upcycling items into something different. But so often, we're just unsure of what to do ourselves, you know. It looks so great on TV or on Pinterest, they look amazing, and then we kind of draw a blank when we try to do it. So today, I'm going to show you several things that you might be able to find at flea markets or garage sales and give you some creative ideas on how to use those differently. But before we get started, I really want to encourage you to like the Annie's Creative Studio Facebook page. It's a great way to find out what episodes will be coming every day, and it's also wonderful to be able to share ideas with other people who like decorating, knitting, crocheting, and other crafts just as much as you do. So let's get started on our creative flea market finds. One of the easiest things to do is simply to turn unexpected things into vases or planters. It can be as easy as just taking an old glass bottle or jar and painting it like we did here. You can paint it with all kinds of different effects that they have. This is a mirror kind of paint. Looks great with these faux hydrangeas in there. Here's a bottle, just a plain old regular kind of soda bottle that you put some paint in, swirl it around and let it drain out, and it makes a nice kind of interesting vase. Single stems, place them in there. They look great in there. They're also kind of really interesting. I have a board here. As you can see, they would be really kind of interesting if you mounted this vase up on this wooden board. They'd look great. So lots of clever ideas to do that with. You can go to the hardware store. You can find what they call pipe straps. You can hang them this way, so you have several of them that way. Or, you know, a lot of ways to do something different with flowers and planters that you really wouldn't expect. Another way to transform some of those everyday sort of flea market finds, besides painting them, is to maybe add some other material to them. So in this case, this is just a glass bottle that we painted white and then wrapped some twine around really tight. And it gives it just a really great different look. And you could do that with a lot of different things. Here, standard everyday lamp base. You know, you can find these at tons of garage sales and things, or very inexpensively a lot of times at discount stores. Give it a fresh kind of new look by wrapping some rope around it. You know, start at the bottom, wrap it around tight, hot glue it in as you go, and just keep the pieces all tight together, wrapped all the way to the very top. And you have a completely different look. So besides rope, another option could be something like this. All this is just a basic tin can that we wrapped some burlap around and glued in place. And then cut a strip of burlap, bunched it together, and made a little burlap flower on there. So again, super easy, great way to update something that you wouldn't expect. Here's a few other ideas in terms of painting or adding some additional materials to things. Cutting board. Basic cutting board. You probably have a bunch of these at home. Otherwise, you can find a lot of them at flea markets, garage sales, thrift stores. A really cool kind of idea to do this. Paint the whole front of it with chalkboard paint. And then you can hang it up on the wall and it becomes a menu for your family for dinner. Or, you know, you can just put any kind of fun thing on there. But that makes a really cool kind of kitchen accessory. Here's another thought. These kind of cheap trays are all over the place. So go ahead and paint the inside of this with chalkboard paint as well. You could turn it into a chalkboard sign that you wouldn't expect. Or paint the inside and go ahead and use some stick-on adhesive letters and write the word family or write the word eat or something on there to really look cool. And here's a thought. Let's say you might have some lace items, maybe something that your grandmother made or your aunt made, and you really love them and you want to be able to show them off. Find yourself a tray like this or it could be a frame, but something that definitely has a solid bottom that won't leak or anything. Take your piece of lace, stick it on the inside, mix up some epoxy, pour it inside there and let it harden. And what'll happen is this lace piece will be encased in the epoxy forever, and you'll still be able to see it, which will be great, but it'll be protected, and you could use this then tray to put on water and glasses, things like that, and it still looks a wonderful way to show off that piece of heirloom lace. One final thought with lace. Again, you might have lace in different pieces. They might be some rectangular like this that might not necessarily fit on a tray. So I have this idea for you. What about framing your piece of lace? Again, it's a wonderful way to show off an heirloom treasure from your family. So you can go ahead and get a piece of mat board, put the lace on there. What you can do is you can buy spray adhesive like they use for mount photos and put that on the mat board, and then just go ahead and put it on that frame. Set it in the frame. It looks great. And here's another thought too of what you can do. Consider how you can use pieces in a different way for a different purpose, what they were probably not intended for. So here is a box, kind of a straightforward box that we see a lot of times. You could easily hang this up on a wall, and it could use a little bit like a shelf if you turn it sideways. Lots of things you could do with that. But what's inside here are a few more things I wanted to kind of point out. Napkin rings. It seems like there's so many of these a lot of times at places, at the garage sales and flea markets. People buy napkin rings, they think they look great, and then they end up not using them that much. So they're inexpensive, easy to find. Think outside the box. Think of what you can do with them. Real simple, they would be great to hold little votive candles. See how easily that goes in there? Fits in there really nice. The tapered candles work really well for that. You could have all kinds of different looks for this. Here, if you have a holiday Christmas look, it would look nice in there. If you wanted something a little more elegant, this wouldn't be bad in there. Go ahead and think of what you can do in addition with these. Perhaps what you do is here's the top of a newel post. You can find these, go ahead and buy these new and just paint them from your hardware store. Or you can cut it down a little bit, make it straight there. Glue on a napkin ring. Let's go ahead and put the metal one there. It might look a little different, see different looks to it. But go ahead and glue on the napkin ring. And then you have an interesting different kind of candle holder for that. Another thought with these napkin rings is gluing them together. So you can get a whole variety of them, glue them together with a really strong adhesive, or if they happen to be like this one where they have holes in there, you could just attach them together with pieces of wire, and then go ahead and hang these with another piece of wire or with an S-hook, and they're a great little thing to show your scarves, to hang your scarves in. So it's a kind of a nice little holder for your scarves. Here is a bed spring, part of a spring that we see a lot of times, these springs. And they can be combined with glass test tubes to put in the middle to use as vases. Here's just a cheap, inexpensive little champagne glass that we kind of nestle it in there. Again, could be a votive holder. Maybe take a little bit of some greenery. And again, think about too, maybe somebody's selling a wreath for $1 or some garland that's seen better days. Don't be afraid to cut it up and use the pieces. And go ahead and nestle that greenery down in there. And it's really, you have this really kind of different look to it. Another fun thing to do with these extra greenery pieces are to actually turn them into napkin rings. So maybe for the holidays, you just cut apart some greenery pieces, twist them a little bit around your napkins, and there you go. Don't be afraid to combine things together. Just look at items and see how they might work to create something else by piecing them together. We used this champagne glass with the bed spring to create a little votive holder, but here's another thought. Turn it upside down, find some single plates. This is one case where you can buy one plate at a time. They don't need to match. A really strong epoxy glue, glue it to the top of your glass, and you have a cake stand, dessert tray. We see, a lot of times we see these tart pans, these old metal tart pans in a lot of places. And they're kind of interesting on their own. You could go back to the wood piece that I had here, or here's a piece, just a little piece of trim that I have. And you could put a screw through there and go ahead and insert that screw in there. And you could have several of them lined up on a board like that. And we can go ahead and grab our votive candles again. And you could see how they would look. Add a little bit of greenery to them. Fresh greens would be fine, but put a little maybe springtime greenery in there. And there you have a nice little centerpiece that you can do. Or like I said, you can combine several things together. So you could go ahead and maybe take a candle stand like this, just a traditional candle stand, maybe an old bunt pan or something like that, put it on top. A larger pillar candle sits on top. And so it's an interesting way to get a different kind of candle holder for how you want it to look. Here's another thought. Take a larger fluted tart pan, set it at the bottom. Take your candlestick and place that inside. Take some greenery or whatever you might like and stick that in there. Your other tart pan on top and your candle. A little bit more of an elaborate kind of centerpiece, something that just, adds a little bit of a different look to it, something you might not think of. This here is just a plain metal, small metal tin kind of flower container. When you turn it this way, you can tell and see that it was meant to just hold some cut flowers. And then this is just a small little tart pan, hot glued onto the top, or actually glued with a strong epoxy glue onto the top. And again, becomes a candle stand. A few more ideas of where you can put candles. This happens to be part of a chicken feeder. So this one's an older one. You could tell by the age to it. But you certainly can find these new at any kind of farm stores. But again, candle holder really fits a nice little pillar right there inside there. If you wanted to add more to it, let's see what we could do. You certainly could put your piece of lace down first and soften it up a little bit there. Have that kind of look to it. These kind of bowls and things were really popular at one time, but they can become interesting candle holders. Another thought that you can do with those bowls is you can go ahead and wrap them with the rope like we did with the bottle. Wrap it all the way around the bowl just to give it a different look. Another thought to think outside the box is to imagine what items might look like as hooks or hangers. So some simple ideas you can certainly do with that. Find some just really either old that are very kind of interesting, glass and things like that, knobs, or you could just go buy some on your own. And then, you'll go ahead and drill a hole and you'll just screw them right into a board. And this here uses the same knobs, But it looks really interesting too when you use different knobs, you know, some ceramic ones, some glass ones, things like that. Rolling pin, okay? Go ahead and take a rolling pin. Take some curtain rod brackets. Buy them at any hardware store. They're super easy, cheap. You just buy them, metal ones. They're kind of an L shape. They have a spot at the end here where the rod hangs. Go ahead and put your rolling pin right into those brackets and let it hang there. This becomes an interesting, perhaps an interesting kitchen towel holder when it's in the brackets. Another idea of what you can do, this happens to be an old or different looking kind of rolling pin, which is really kind of interesting. But this is all one piece. And this here is a piece of baluster from a staircase, a railing, or it could, you know, you could even be a table leg, something like that. But go ahead and cut these on an angle. So you have an angle cut for each of them. And then what you'll do is you'll mount them on a board. So again, if we take our large board here that we had before, this kind of barnwood board, but if you cut this on an angle and mount it like this, and maybe put 2 or 3 of them in there, then you have, some, again, a nice hooks to hold towels, or you can use them to hold baskets of flowers, different things like that. And while I have this board here, I want to show you another idea. So I have these adorable, sweet little teapots. And these alone would be great. Again, you can use them for candle holders. You can put flowers in them. But a really interesting idea would be to then take the lids, and again, using a very strong adhesive, glue the lids onto a board. And now when you hang this on the wall, these become hooks. Garden tools. So you have some garden tools, and again, you can go ahead and hang these on the wall. You can mount them on the wall this way. You can use an S hook or something like that here, and it becomes an interesting hook. Or what would be really kind of cool would be to take these pieces, and again, you want to make sure you have ones that have the wooden handles, and to drill through the wooden handles and create holes in them, and using long screws, attach them to cabinet doors, to either a tall cabinet or a hutch or something like that, and these become the handles for the doors. An old suitcase. Now this one has some really interesting design to it. It's got the leather edging and the texture and things like that. So lots of ways to use an old suitcases. You could just simply stack them up in the corner. You know, if you can find several suitcases, you can stack them up on top of each other, and they almost become a little table kind of in the corner, but you can then use them for storage. You can keep your yarns, maybe sewing items in there, or old photos, things like that, and keep them there in storage. Another idea, you could get some strong L brackets, mount them to the back, and attach this to the wall, and it becomes an interesting shelf. Again, you could still store some light things in there, but it does become an interesting shelf. So you want to make sure you're putting it on a stud, or you're really getting it adhered to the wall well for that kind of look. You could maybe go out and get one of those TV dinner trays, those kind of TV trays that people had years ago, and go ahead and paint the tray, set this on top of it, and again, it becomes a different kind of nice little side table to use. So suitcases are really kind of interesting, and you might not find any like this that are really have this nice, wonderful trim on there. They might be just your standard sort of looking cases. But nowadays, you can find so many great paints that you can paint on patent leather or things like that, paint on plastics, that you can make something look really nice and old and interesting. And of course, you always could add rivets or trim or whatever to give it this kind of older look. Next up, let's talk about picture frames. As I said earlier, you can always frame a piece of lace to give it that kind of interesting look. But there's lots of other things you can do with picture frames. And you certainly can find picture frames galore at flea markets and garage sales. A lot of times they might be kind of an old wooden finish, or maybe that kind of gilded looking sort of gold finish from years ago. But with a coat of paint, they turn out into something else wonderful and great. So not only could you just add a coat of paint to it, especially if you have an interesting picture frame, but even if you had a basic picture frame, nowadays you can go to hardware stores, you can buy wood rosettes or wood trim and go ahead and attach it to your frame and then paint the whole thing, and you'll get kind of a look like this. Or even buy some letters, some of the stick-on letters, and spell out family or love or something like that to use as a picture frame. Old jewelry, old pieces of jewelry, you can glue them on, stretch a piece of a bracelet across here and add some look to the picture frame. You could always go ahead and just hang them on your wall with nothing in them. This is really a popular look right now. It kind of plays off the gallery wall sort of look. So you can hang them on your wall, different looks, different spots, have nothing in them or have maybe just something small in them. You can hang it on a wall and then go ahead and hang a smaller one inside it. And you kind of get this double framed effect, which really does look very interesting. So you could do that. You can hang those on the wall like that. One thing that would be kind of a neat idea, we happened to find this bottle that was really kind of a cool bottle. The color on it is great, but again, you could get a similar color by, there's some paints you can do. You just pour them into the bottle, swish it around a little bit and pour it out, let it dry. But go ahead and hang the bottle on the wall with either a pipe strap across the neck or in some other way that you can do that. And then you hang that and you put the frame across it and it looks really interesting. You could go ahead and put a flower in there, have it hanging on the wall framed, and that's the effect you'd have. What I've seen was kind of really interesting. You, again, go back and get your letters that you can buy, the dimensional letters, wood ones, metal ones. You can get them at hobby stores, and attach them to your wall to spell out a word. Maybe spell out your family name or spell out the word love, and then put the frame over it, and then surrounding it have pictures of your family. That would look really kind of interesting. One great way to upcycle a piece into a new home decor item is to turn something into a clock. And actually, you may not know this, but you can buy clock assemblies with all the parts and everything already attached. So it really is not as hard as you might think. The clock assembly comes with a battery pack. It has the hands to it, and it's super easy. All you really need is something that you can put a hole through to be able to put the stem in for the clock assembly. So this pan, this tin pan like this, would be something that would work really great. The battery pack just goes on the back here. You drill a hole in the center, the stem comes in the center, and you attach the hands. And so then at that point, all you need to do is put your numbers on. And you can either paint your numbers, you can buy stick-on numbers, or whatever you'd like. So you can turn this into a clock. Here's a lid, an old lid from a large kind of tin can, but you can certainly make that into a clock. A tin pan, hang it on the wall, you can turn that into a clock. I've seen bundt pans turned into clocks. You can use just a wood board. It doesn't have to be round. You can have a square wood board. You can make that into a clock. You can take our idea of the empty frames and you could go ahead and just have the clock assembly be the small little part with the numbers on the wall and have the frame go around the whole thing. So pretty much anything that is, you know, large enough or flat enough that you can put a hole through, that you could then put the clock assembly through there, you can turn into a clock. And finally, another thing that's easier to do than you think is to turn something into a lamp. You can buy lamp kit assemblies already complete with everything you need. It has the wiring kit, it has the screws, it has the sockets, everything you would need, and very clear instructions on how to do it. So you can pretty much just pendant lamps. Pendant lamps can be created out of almost anything. They're really a great way to do it. Here, an old tart pan. Cut a hole in the center here at the bottom. Using the instructions, attach the lamp assembly kit in there. You'll screw the pieces in so that the top and the bottom are screwed in. Your cord will come up from here, and then your bulb will hang there. So it'll hang here just like a pendant lamp. Here's a bucket, metal bucket again. As long as you can drill a hole in there or have it go through, have the bulb come out there, the cord at the top there, and have it hang. That could be a pendant lamp. A metal basket like this could really be a pendant lamp, would be very cute. In this case, you wouldn't need to drill anything, but you maybe would have some washers you would put on either side to hold it in place. But again, that can become a pendant lamp. With some of the lamp assembly kits too, you can even turn something else into an interesting lamp. You know, this could become a really interesting lampshade. You have a harp up there that could hold it in place. But there's other things that you can turn into lamps because this assembly is what you would be getting. So as long as you can run the wires through the center, you can turn it into a lamp. So there you go. Lots of creative ideas for turning these flea market finds that you can purchase at garage sales or flea markets or anywhere into really creative home decor. I hope you enjoyed these ideas, and if you try any of them or if you have your own ideas, we would love to see them. Be sure to share them on the Annie's Creative Studio Facebook page, and we will see you next time on Creative Living.